Loving generosity can move us deeply. I remember as a child how my Granny Betty on her birthday would have a bundle of presents all wrapped up that she would give to us children. I think she couldn't bear to open presents and not give us something. Moments of generosity, whether small or big, can stay with us our whole lives. Now more than ever, our world is in desperate need of this quality of generosity. And so with this in mind, I want to think about the next verse in this passage that we've been looking at. Carrying on his point about the primacy of love, Paul now goes on, and in a sense, he ups the ante. He says, if I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. To me, this verse is a bit more confusing than yesterday's. For one thing, it's impossible to read through the Bible and not notice that all the way through it, it equates love with action, especially towards those in need. And all the way through the Old Testament, we're shown that God is the God of the oppressed and the misused. In fact, if you've ever heard the phrase God's wrath, it's most often linked to the injustice that his own people were perpetrating on the most vulnerable. And if Jesus was God, as Christians believe, then he has exemplified this absolute priority on God's heart in his life and in his teachings. Paul himself constantly referred to that, lived it out, and taught it himself. So what then is he trying to say here? Well, nowhere has Paul contradicted the teaching that in order to truly love, we have to give. That's clear throughout the Bible. But his statement can almost be seen as a corollary to that teaching. He's saying that while it is impossible to love without giving, it is entirely possible to give without loving. There are two things here that are interesting to me. The first is that there is a way of giving which is all about me and not about the person or the group that I'm giving to. Many countries have suffered when another country has come swooping in with ideas of what needs to change or happen, but have in fact failed to really listen and then give in a way that actually helps. Books like When Helping Hurts have been written on this topic, and it's something important for us to think about right now. Of course, we can also think about this though in terms of our interpersonal relationships. The book The 5 Love Languages is an example of how we can really start to think about the other and letting our focus be on how someone else would receive the love that I want to give. So whether it's on a macro or a micro scale, giving is only loving when I'm really able to think about the other, when I can concentrate on the one that I'm giving to, not just simply myself as the giver. The second thing that interests me is that theologians have pointed out that the language that Paul's using here implies that the person who is giving so much of their possessions, even to the point of giving their own life, is doing this in the hope of gaining spiritual merits. Paul's point here is to say that while our instinct might be that we have to earn our value by doing good things, which is understandably what a lot of people associate with religion, that is in fact the opposite of the Christian message. Often we could assume that if there were a God, we would have to do all sorts of good things to impress or appease this God or to be loved by this God. But Jesus taught unequivocally that it was the other way around. Just like how loving parents love their children, not because their children have impressed them with their good behavior, but because they are their children. We need to know, you and I, that we are loved by God right now, and that there's nothing we can do to make God love us more or less. No matter who we are loved. Yesterday we looked at how the word agape was a word that Paul chose and wasn't a commonly used word at the time. At the time, the word agape simply meant to lean or incline towards. I love that Paul chose this word because it perfectly pictures what the God of the Bible is like a lover who comes close, who is willing to be vulnerable themselves, who wants to incline their hearts towards the beloved, like a parent who also has their child on their heart and on their mind and comes close to them and is never aloof. This is what the God of the Bible is like. You and I are always in his mind and on his heart.